Now available on Blu-ray from Bayview Entertainment is Northern Shade. This is an independent drama from just last year, 2022, as I record this, about an Afghan war vet who has been back home for 7 years, his civilian life, adjusting to civilian life. This was shot during the pandemic, so there's distancing and masks and references to the pandemic when it was made. Makes it immediately kind of a period piece now, which seems funny. And this lonely, sort of solitary guy dealing with PTSD, dealing with readjusting to civilian life after the war, dealing with the guilt of his buddies and, the band of brothers he left behind, people who didn't make it back from the war, the guilt of being the one who did make it back, and also the guilt and adjustment of having gone off into the army for many years, leaving his brother and mother back home to fend for themselves. So the basic story here is that which I just told you, but also it's this soldier. In flashback, you see a pretty formative event that happened to him while he was in Afghanistan that continues to eat away at him. And you also see that the film opens with like a pickup truck being set on fire at night. Very striking image, actually. Very well shot film. It's an independent film. It doesn't have anybody you would recognize in it, I don't think. And it was shot in Connecticut. And so it's very under the radar for most people, but it's actually really quite well made. So this pickup truck is on fire, and it turns out that it belonged to this soldier's brother, and then it becomes him trying to find his brother. Nobody knows where his brother went. It's rumored that he was seen with certain people in this certain area, and it turns out his brother is tied to this Connecticut militia group. And I'm not going to tell you everything that happens. This former soldier vet tries to get into that encampment of these militia people to find out, is his brother there? Is his brother alive or dead? What's going on? And what he does find out is they're planning something. So that's the basic story here. Basic story of the film in motion. This was a very nice surprise for me. This, again, while it stars nobody you've heard of, it's very well made. It's very competently made, and it's very engaging. Like, you can see that this film is sort of heading toward a potentially unpleasant climax, potential violencia in the climax, and even if it was just the drama about this guy back home from the war and his family troubles, it would be a solid flick. It's well written, well performed, again, technically very well done. I think the lack of stars is probably going to keep this under most people's radar. I don't know how well this is going to get distributed beyond the Blu-ray. I don't know if this I'm sure will find its way onto streaming services and so forth. It's worth checking out. This was good. This is the kind of movie that I could easily see being a Hollywood film if you put bigger stars in it. I could easily see this film being adapted or remade into a bigger, frankly dumber film with a lot more emphasis on the action. I could see this as, in his day, a Van Damme film or a Chuck Norris film or something like that, if you just amped up the exploitable elements of it more. There is gunplay and drama and violence and excitement in this film, but at its core, it's a drama. At its core, it's a drama that examines very real things that mean a lot to a lot of people. All of which I've already mentioned, and I probably won't bother to mention again. But this was a really nice surprise. I was sent this disc out of the blue. I had no idea what it was about. I popped it in blind, and it held my attention from the get-go. And sometimes you watch these indie films, and sometimes the acting isn't quite so good, or the directing is a little loose, or some technical element really kind of keeps you at a distance. But this didn't do that. This drew me right in, and I was quite impressed. I don't know how much attention this movie is going to get. I don't know if this will make any difference for people, but if you have the ability to see a film called Northern Shade, I would recommend that you do so, because I thought it was rather well done. So you get the movie. Now we're talking about the Blu-ray. You get the movie. You get a couple extras. You get In Memory of Rob DeNaro. This is basically a slideshow or a still in a crawl talking about this. He was the part of the film, the main character, the vet, he basically lives on a boat and in a marina. And this guy, Rob DeNaro, was the guy who owned that boat, and he would drive the boat around for them. So he was a guy who was a really great guy, apparently, who took his own life, unfortunately, before the movie came out. And they just do a nice little tribute to him on there. You have production slates, which is exactly what it says. It's a whole lot of take 5, scene 6, which is kind of interesting, and 2 deleted scenes that are about 2 minutes each, which are they're interesting, but they don't, when you watch them, you're not like, this changes everything, which is usually the case with deleted scenes. They're usually things that were redundant or slowed the film down a little bit, and losing them didn't really make much of a difference. Once in a great while, you see one where you're like, man, that is so great. I'm so glad I could see that. Most of the time, they're just kind of interesting. They just give you like a little bit more of a taste of this story in this world, and that's what these 2 deleted scenes do. So on Blu-ray now from Bayview Entertainment, I would personally recommend Northern Shade.